Right then, welcome back. And you've probably guessed, but we're doing this. The 2002 Ducati 998R. Well, not this one, that's the stock one. Typical late 90s, early noughties figures, 130-ish horsepower, 200-ish kilos. That was the pinnacle. It didn't get much better than that for V-twins. When we throw the kitchen sink, the bucket, the spade, the shovel, and everything else at it, we get, what, 165, so 30-odd horsepower, and we take about 20 kilos out of it. But, ooh... My question for you is there a more iconic motorcycle than the 9 Series Ducati? I don't think there is. Well, no, I don't think there is. I think that is the one. There's the setup. That's the electronic settings. Preload, rear preload. Look at that, 6. Bit weird. I've got thoughts on it. We'll talk about them later. Pros, it's like a big 600cc machine. Yes, it is. Great front end. Very good front end. Typical Ducati. They've got that into the game very well, and it's good for tyre heat. Warms the tyres up, you can use what you want. Cons, feels top heavy, that'll be those massive cans. It doesn't like bumps, and it's hard to extract the maximum potential. It's not a bike that is easy to go fast on. It's a bike that's really nice to ride around excuse me, at 7/8 tenths. At 10 tenths, it is not a nice machine. It wants to fight you, and not in a I've had 5 pints of Stella and a kebab and now I want to fight. It is just angry all of the time. We start off at Brands, 5-lapper, in what can only be described as the pissing rain. The setup that was in there, I'm not willing to take responsibility for it because it was, well, strange. So we put everything back to a 2.8, we graduated the gears, we did all the usual jazz, just to see where we sat. Now, I don't really like starting a bike off in the rain, but we were doing the stock 1000cc Cup in the Euro League, so as we were just working our way through, and this was the first race. There's all sorts in there, Z1000s, hedge abusers, GSXRs. Excuse me, I've got a horrible cough from somewhere and I can't control it. It was wet. I was going to say it was damp, but no, it was a bit more than damp. It wasn't biblical. I wouldn't go that far, but it certainly wasn't the nicest conditions. I'm surprised the bike even started. That area of Ducati tend not to like wet weather. Wet or cold, no, I'm refusing to play. I had a 2009 Monster a while back, nice one, 1100S, Olin suspension, forged Marcazzini wheels and all the usual jazz. And genuinely honest, hand on heart, if it was less than 12 degrees ambient air temperature, it basically didn't work. It was the grumpiest motorcycle in the world. But anyway, we're getting distracted. Back to this. Nice little drag race down the back straight of Brands with an R1. I guess they were contemporary rivals when they both came out. Late 90s R1, early 2000s Ducati. And it was okay, but we can see straight away from the tyres, we've got a little bit more energy going forwards than we have backwards. It's incredibly nervous to initial inputs on the path, so that thing where I said it feels top heavy, it's a trellis frame bike, it's got a big metal tank, it's got twin underseat pipes which just lift everything up in the air. It's also quite narrow, it's a V-twin, so they made the frame and the bodywork narrow, so she's kind of tall, she's kind of thin, and she's not quite as long as we really want her to be because she wants to wheelie all the time. So it felt like it was tipping into the bends all the time. You'll notice I seemed to be running over the inside of the curb, which took a little while to get used to. Bear in mind, my hours on Ride 4 have dropped off dramatically due to a new game and a new console, but I'm still getting some hours in. It's just more difficult because I'm not hammering it all the time. So yeah, it took me a little while to adjust. We didn't end up in the lead until lap 5. At one point I didn't think we were going to get in the lead. It was a Mr. Martini Flashback 2 jobber, which is a 1098 engine, might be a 1200 engine, but whatever, 1098 engine. But yeah, we got there in the end. We did go testing. I needed to sort of set up on the bike out, and we ended up with 122.4, which would have put us 94th. I believe it was the top 998. I can't remember because it was a few days back now. I can't remember, but having played with the setup and mucked about with it, so we went from a 2 and 8. I took one off the front preload. I put 2 on the rear, on the front. Sorry, one off the front preload, 2 on the front spring hardness and compression, 1 on the front rebound. So I essentially went to a 1 and 8 on the preload, and I went up to 10 for the spring hardness and compression, and I went to 5 on the rebound. On the rear, I took 2 off the preload, so I went from 8 to 6, and I put 2 on the spring hardness, 1 on the rebound, and took 1 off the comp, just to try and speed up the bike, the back wheel coming back to where I wanted it to be, and slow down the way that it was compressing. So I was trying to narrow the window of movement that the rear wheel had to try and make it a little bit better on the gas, to stop it wheeling as well, so it would drive forward. So a little bit of squat and drive forward, rather than just loads of squat or no squat and it just pivoting around the back wheel. But yeah, was it better? Yes. Did it spread the energy in the tyres better? Yes, it did. We're never going to beat the RSV4 Aprilia 2010, but like I say, we ended up, I think it was 94th one, yeah, 122.446, something like that. I did have a look up and down, but I can't remember. I genuinely can't remember. And in my notes, my comprehensive notes, obviously not comprehensive enough, I didn't make a note of where it was. Next up, we went to Monza, and I don't like Monza as a track for motorcycles. It is unbelievably boring. It's just straights and braking areas, and if you're quick and you can nail the braking zones, you're laughing. Other than that, it is just pure boredom. Put the chicanes in to slow everybody down. Shit. Absolutely unnecessary. One thing to note, 180 mile an hour straight line, 155 mile an hour banked over. So that's the radius of the tyre reducing, increasing the revs, and that's why you're hitting the limits at 155. I've never really highlighted it before, but that's why, because the outer circumference of the tyre shrinks as you lean it over, because the middle of the tyre is a larger diameter circumference. Don't know, can't remember. My secondary school maths / physics is failing in my adult brain as I get older. But we went miles out front, we stuck the softs on, we used them up pretty much all the way. It did quite well, actually. There's a tyre heat. Most bikes are stone cold tyres at the end of a 5-lap race at Monza. That put a bit of heat in. Again, I went testing 8 laps. You cannot believe how tedious 8 laps of Monza on a time trial is. But we took, the best part of 2 seconds out of our race time, so that's no drafting, just me and a big fat Ducati trying to go around here as fast as we can. One thing it does do with anti-wheelie 1 on it, just pulls nice, lovely, floaty wheelies. Now, in my experience, a floater is not necessarily a good thing. However, on a motorcycle, it is just a little bit of a floaty wheelie off into the distance. But you can see already the bike looks, and I guess it's subjective, but the bike looks like it's keying into the tarmac. Well, you can tell it's got more grip. It's coming back into line a bit quicker. It's not fighting me as much as it was. But yeah, into the braking zone. I mean, the straights are just boring, aren't they? But into the braking zones, through the chicanes, you can see it's not firing off to one side as fast as it was at Brands Hatch. And I've got much more control, despite the fact that running a soft front tyre at Monza with a massive braking zone and chicanes, we're still not really overheating it. She handles the bumps a bit better as well. But yeah, improvement. We didn't make any changes after the time trial from Brands Hatch. It's the same setup at Monza, and it's the same setup at the last track, which is the Imola Variante Bassa, so the bottom chicane. But yeah, there you go, another Aprilia lap, which we're never going to beat. So when we went down, I think we got a 196th again. I do think it was the top 998 if you're really into that stuff. I mean, it's never going to beat an M1000RR, not in a straight fight, certainly not. S1000 Panigale V4s. I mean, there's some seriously heavyweight machinery in there. And we've dropped a, what's the rating on this? S824 Ducati, smack bang into the middle of a load of serious 1000cc bikes. But Imola, I was worried. I was genuinely concerned at Imola because it's bumpy, it's fast, you need a lot of grunt up out of the hairpin, the hill, up to, what is it, the Ravazzas? No, that's the bottom of the lap, innit? I can't remember the corner is at the top of the hill. We'll have a look at it in a minute. But up that hill, you need a serious amount of grunt. The one thing the Ducati does do well, if you put the anti-wheelie on too, is it launches quite hard. Little bit of wibbly-wobbly through the Tamburello chicane because we had a Fireblade that came steaming up the inside. But I did the cut back and managed to go around the outside of them into the next chicane, the Villeneuve chicane. But yeah, again, the bike, woo, that Fireblade, he was keen. The bike just felt nice, front-endy. You can't you can't ride round and hope that it will do what you want it to do. You have got to pin this bike on the front end and hope, watch the rear end up here, and hope that the rear end just stays with you. It will get into all sorts of shapes, not necessarily because you're going very, very fast. It will just tie itself in knots for no good reason other than it's a Ducati and it's got a bit of attitude and it wants to. I imagine that they probably struggled with the lateral stiffness, because there's got to be a lateral stiffness set in the physics engine of the game, surely. The AI fell off that were leading. I was worried we weren't going to catch him, but then they fell off, so that saved us a problem. But yeah, lateral stiffness, I'm not convinced that you can measure the lateral stiffness of a trellis frame with the accuracy you can of a twin spar aluminium frame, because there's so many different points of flex, and one tube's this thickness and so on and so forth. But anyway, we did 5 laps. We ran the medium front, soft rear. We went at 149.7 was our fastest race lap, and it went okay. It did use the soft tyre pretty much all of the way. We had 13, 10, 11, 12%, whatever, but the bike was better, 5-6 second lead, and it just, if you go too far it will slide, as you just saw then, and it will take a little bit of curve, but yeah, you've just got to be careful. It's not a 600, it's not a GSXR 750, it's not a Fireblade. It is in such a different universe to a Fireblade, it's unbelievable. But again, as always, we went and did some testing, some time attacks, and we went at 147.4, potential 147.1. There's probably a chicane cut in there somewhere. Well, that's what, again, 2.3 seconds off the race time, so not too bad. The difference is it's warm, the conditions are static, and we've got a few laps under our belt, so we know what bumps it likes, we know what bumps it doesn't. Out the last bit of the Tambrella chicane, it really doesn't like those bumps. Through the Villeneuve, you've just got to stand it up, pin the brakes, and just fire it off towards the hairpin. Round the hairpin, this is off camber, and if you hit the inside curb, you'll be off and skidding into the gravel before you know what you're doing. This hill, out of the Tozer hairpin up here, it does not like that hill at all. Absolutely not. Piratella, that's it, Piratella. I could not remember the name of that corner. So through Piratella, down towards, I want to say Aqua Minerale. My brain is absolutely useless at the minute. I can't remember the names of things, just love no money. And then up to the top chicane, again, grunting up the hill. It just lacks a little bit, but keep it nice and tidy. Don't go to 10 tenths, stay at 9.5 tenths. Ride within the bike's limits, and it's not too bad. Down the hill, that is some serious shapes, sir, that Ducati is cutting down there. Through Ravazza 1 and 2, and then down back along the home straight, the start-finish straight, through the last chicane. And yeah, a little bit of curve through there, and that was neat and tidy. That's how you've got to ride the bike. Neat and tidy, you get loads of time back. Neat and tidy makes everything quicker, doesn't it? But yeah, 147.483, not quite quick enough to displace our super naked in 26th, nowhere near, but I logged that as 85th, again the top 998R. Yeah, 147.483, yeah, 85th. So again, top 100. It was only really Monza where that's a pure power track where we were struggling. There's the setup again, pros and cons. It's not a bad bike. It holds more rose-tinted nostalgia value than anything else, I think. It's one of those bikes that if you're a 40-something, 50-something, you're lusted after as a young man. And don't get me wrong, bike design has come on many, many, many leaps and bounds. Put a Panigale at the side of that and that will look absolutely ancient, but for its time, it did not get any better than that. Carbon fibre fairings. I remember going and seeing one in the showroom and realising it had got carbon fibre fairings, and my testicles almost retreated to their pre-pubescent stage. I just could not believe it. A motorcycle with carbon fibre fairings, it was just on a different planet. And the 749R was the same. But yeah, there you go. I'll leave you with a couple of fails, and I'll see you next time when we do the setup on a GSXR 600, the 2005 model. So fingers crossed I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, commenting, liking. Take care, stay safe, peace.